Anybody have a question yet? Okay, get your questions ready. And we're gonna have a runner. Give me I can boss him around. Irvin, will you be a runner for me, please? You'll raise your cards when you get them. And Irvin on this side is gonna be a runner. Who's gonna be a runner over this side? Who I know over there I can boss around? Oh, man, I can boss him. He's my cousin. So those two men, raise your hand, Irvin, and when you get your cards ready, just raise your hand, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna get to see this game tonight, okay? All right. Yeah, first. Okay, we're gonna start with a lady. Yeah, I know y'all, lady. We want to start with the lady first. She's gonna do her 2-minute introduction, and she is Jackie Collier. And then Malone is gonna do his, and then Leon Hardiman is gonna do his. All right? Oh, say all right. All right.
Okay, thanks. You ready? Okay. Ready. Okay, good evening. Good evening. How are you? Listen, my name is Jackie Collier, and I have been a resident of District 5 the majority of my life. Grew up in Overtown in Liberty City, Model City, and have attended college, went away, came back, and decided that this was where I wanted to live, and this is where I wanted to have my career. I have been the director of the Department of Children and Families with over $150 million budget, $600 million in pass-through. I have tremendous knowledge and experience with following the money. I also have found over 3,000 jobs as a Chief Operating Officer for Lockheed Martin. Additionally, I work now for the Children's Trust, where I really work toward making sure that this park has after-school programs and summer camp programs for the children in this neighborhood. Because I understand how important it is for us to have those programs and services that are critical for this community. As your commissioner, I will do no less. While as the Department of Children and Families brought in an additional $11 million just for child care licensing. Because one of the things that I realized and recognized that children who are in child care did not have the standards of the kind of care in those facilities that we wanted. So we got monies for grants that gave each of those facilities that were selected the ability to build kaboom parks, to put awnings and shade over their areas for their children, and to make sure that those children had the books and the kinds of programs and services that they needed, to even include additional teachers and what we call stipends, to make sure that those teachers who were teaching in the early learning centers could go back to school on scholarships. So for me, it has been all about, it's been all about service to this community. As your commissioner, I will do no less. As your commissioner, I am ready on day one to lead. Thank you. All right.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Malone. I'm a candidate for the City of Miami Commission, District 5. And just to introduce myself to you, I'm the president of the Hadley Park Homeowners Association. Mr. Herschel Haynes is acting as president right now. And I want to say something. This is not about me. This is about the homeowners in this area, about the residents of District 5, making sure that they choose the best leader. That's what this is all about. I was born and raised here, graduated from Miami Edison Senior High School, went off to college to University of Florida and Florida State, and in 2007 I was awarded my PhD in Education Leadership. For decades, ever since I got out of high school, I would come back to this community. When we talk about experience, I have experience, grassroots experience, of working with young people to make sure they have a better life. As president of the Hadley Park Homeowners Association, I work on issues of code enforcement and crime and keeping neighborhoods together. This is what I'm all about. Oftentimes, in this election, people talk about experience. Two things about experience relative to the city of Miami. Number one, so-called experience is the reason why the city of Miami is in the bad shape it is right now. That's one. And number two, the experience that I have is about people, helping people. As your next City of Miami Commission, that's what I want to do. I want to help. This District 5, City of Miami, is in need of help. And as your next commissioner, that's what I would do. I would help people, not special interests. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. I am Keon Hardeman. I am a candidate for the City of Miami Commissioner here in District 5. And I'm running for commissioner because I want to help this community become a world-class city. So to do that, we have to talk about some visionary things. I believe that our community deserves a place where people should feel safe. And when you have safe communities, what you're able to do is increase the investments that come into that community. So imagine in Overtown, where the young professionals in that community, like the ones that are now retired, those young professionals are coming from all around the country, where they can watch jazz, listen to jazz, watch plays, where they can shop at nice places and eat at fine restaurants, including those owned by people that look like you and me. Imagine a place where in Liberty City, when you drive down 7th Avenue, you see active businesses on 62nd Street and on its way down south towards 7th Avenue, instead of what we see now, a collection of dilapidated buildings. Imagine a community where there are no abandoned houses, but all of them are filled with families that are joyful, and the crime in this community has gone down. You see, we can get there, but it takes the vision of how you want this community to be in the future. We've had the experiences that have led us to where we are today, but now is the time that we step forward into a new way of life. We step forward into a new opportunity for all of us. You see, I envision Miami as a place that all of us will want to live in, that our children want to live in, and our grandchildren. I envision a place where Miami competes with the New Yorks, the Houstons, the Dallases, and the Californias. I envision Miami as a place where all of us can come, sit at the table, read books, and do things that would make this community something to be rivaled of. Miami's on a bubble. Miami's on a level of greatness, but we won't get there if we won't have leadership that takes us to that next level. What I envision for in this community is to become that leader. And as we continue talking, I'll take more of it. Thank you.
Armand.
Good evening. Good evening. That's a little weak. Good evening. Good evening. Let's try it one more time. Good evening. Good evening. That's better. My name is Richard Dunn, candidate for District 5 Commissioner. I've served many times. I served in 1996 for 2 months. I served in 2010 by appointment both times for 10 months, and then I was elected in November 2010, and I served for 9 months. I won the election against 5 opponents overwhelmingly without a runoff. This election is about experience. We can play around with the issues, we can ignore the facts, but it's about experience. And I have the experience. I've served in many capacities. I've served as a City of Miami zoning board member, appointed by Commissioner Miller Dawkins, the late Commissioner Miller Dawkins. I served on the Civilian Investigative Panel, appointed by Commissioner Arthur E. Teal. And I was even appointed by Commissioner Michelle Spence-Jones to serve as the chairperson of Shantytown. So that lets you know that it's not about partisan politics. It's about the person who has the ability who has the influence, who has the respect, who has the integrity, who has the ability to get things done. This election is one that cannot be decided on someone who's trying to learn. This is not a learning curve. You need someone who can hit the ground running, and I can hit the ground running. I demonstrated that during the time of my tenure. We were able to force the police chief. We put the pressure on Chief Exposito by ourselves, along with Mayor Regalado. But in terms of the shootings, I was the only commissioner who brought it to the exposed a lot of the things that were happening. Gibson Park was done under my leadership. Time is up. Thank you very much. This is about experience, and of course, there is no substitute for it. Thank you.
Okay, any questions from the candidates about time limits or anything else? Okay, can you give them a 30-second or 15-second warning of the 2 minutes? All right. What do you want them to do, clap? Okay, he'll say it to you, okay? I understand you just got the cards, and did anybody write any? No, you just did your comment. Oh, I'm making Oh, okay. Ask me, maybe I can remember.
Well, a question I want to bring to the forefront. Last night, Dr. Robert Malone and I participated in one of the best debates that we've ever had in this process.
That's not a rule.
I'm speaking.
No. Okay, what was the rule about tonight? Okay, we're gonna stick to them.
Yes.
No statements, but okay, what is the question? All right.
I would hope that this forum would be about the issues. If it's not, then we will play by those rules. That's my point that I want to make, and that's my question. Is this debate going to be? Because already I'm beginning to sense something.
Okay. Okay, I'm so sorry about your uneasiness, but it's the people who are doing the question.
Okay.
Okay, the people.
Okay.
So he's uneasy, make him at ease, okay? All right. Okay, number 1. Yes. 7:15. Number 1 is where do the candidates live? I think all folks live. Where you live?
My address?
Your address.
1350 Northwest.
Can you hear it?
No.
1350 Northwest 8th Court is walking distance to Overtown and also walking distance to Jackson Memorial Hospital.
Okay.
Is that in the district, y'all?
Yeah.
Okay, y'all have to help me, okay?
Spring Garden.
Oh, okay.
It's actually not Spring Garden. It's Spring Garden just south.
What the Spring Garden is not in the district? Oh, okay. Spring Garden, you all, okay? Okay.
Highland Park.
Okay. Where you live?
1825 Northwest 47th Terrace. Thank you.
That's in the district, y'all?
1895 Northwest 57th Street.
District? Yes. Okay.
295 Northeast 82nd Street, Oakland Grove.
District? Yes. All right, they made it, okay. And what y'all gonna do if they didn't make it? Y'all throw them out of here? Okay, all candidates, we're gonna start at this end this time. What will you do to change the mindset of giving away Overtown to other people? Y'all got that? Yes. All right. Yeah.
So it's a lot of insinuations in that. However, what you have to do is make sure that you hold the director of the CRA accountable for his actions. What we need from the CRA is to really create something that is income producing for our communities. Because if you can create income producing entities within the CRA, tax creating bases, then you can create an environment in Overtown that is sustainable, self-sustainable really. We have projects that are coming underway that are for affordable housing. We have projects that are coming underway for mixed-use housing and things of that nature. So it's on its way there, but you have to hold that CRA director accountable for his actions. And we have to make sure that we get what's due for the property, which means that the land, the lots, in the CRA. So we don't want to, we have to incentivize sometimes investors come into that community to build there. However, we don't want to give away all the land for pennies on the dollar just to have some development in that community. So as a director, as a commissioner, I will make sure that my CRA person is on top of his job and make sure that I have those meetings with them to ensure that we're doing the right thing by Overtown and not the wrong thing by the city of Miami community. Thank you.
Let me elaborate what Mr. Hardeman was saying. I think the suggestion is the recent deal, if you want to call it, that went through the CRA, that the two lots that we're speaking of, Overtown, was priced at $20 million, but they went for $5 million. And there is a situation Overtown where you have lots that are valued at about $20 million a piece, about $80 million. And people over town and people who lived over town are concerned that the land that's over town being turned over are being for, as Ms. Hardeman suggested, pennies on the dollars. As the next commissioner, I will ask questions. I think the better deal was to lease the land so that the money that we recoup go back to the city of Miami so that we can do some more productive with it. So I think that's a better way of doing it. But not knowing all the details, I'm not part of the CRA, but I think the better way is to make sure that the Overtown community gets something out of the community, out of the land that's being sold. Thank you.
Pretty much what has been echoed, I would do. One of the myths that I would like to dispel tonight is that when I was commissioner that I gave the CRA away. That is a blatant lie. When Commissioner Michelle Spence-Jones was suspended, there was no one in the seat for 2 months. And during that time period, Commissioner Mark Sonoff took over all of the CRAs. So when I came back, when I was appointed in January 26th, of 2010, I was able to get the Southeast Overtown Park West back. There was a time when we did not have anyone representing the city of Miami, so I wanted to put that on the table. What you would do is just make sure that the processes are in place to ensure that fair process and fairness is done. And of course, I have the best track record of fighting in this community. I'm a fighter. I fight. We wouldn't have a District 5 seat if it were not for Richard Dunn. I sued the city in 1996. So I'm a fighter. I fought the police chief. I don't mind fighting for what is right. All we have to do is make sure that the residents of Overtown and the people of the city of Miami, particularly in Southeast Overtown Park West, get what they rightfully deserve. There's no way in heaven or hell that we should have given away $15 million like Commissioner Michelle Spence-Jones just did.
You know, having been a resident of Overtown for 20 years, one of the things that always amazed me was what happened in Overtown in terms of always feeling neglected and left out. And I think that a part of what I want to do and will do as commissioner is that every community is basically under siege by special interest. I don't want y'all to think that we don't live on the best land and property in the city. We are 5 minutes or 10 from just about anything in Miami. And if you think that just because you live in one part that it is not, you're not next, believe me, all of us are in the same situation that possibly Overtown is. I look at Buena Vista Heights right now, that is under siege, because special interests coming in and taking parts of it without any input from neighbors. I believe that every neighborhood should get together, and I will work from my office because this will be my full-time job. I won't have a little part-time, this won't be the part-time job for me. This will be my only job. And I will make sure that every community has what's called a community benefits plan. And in that community benefits plan, each of those communities will have come together and said, when the developers come, and they will be coming. I don't want you to think for 1 minute they're not coming. They are looking at District 5, knowing that we live in the best part. We may not have a lot of water, but we live in the most convenient part of this city. And they're not sitting there looking like, oh, well, you know, that's why they don't want somebody who can think in the seat. Because they want somebody who will do what they want them to do in this seat. You need somebody who can think, who can stand up to them, and who does not mind standing up to them.
Good job. Okay, the next question. What are you going to do about MLK Boulevard? Okay. Somebody knows who wrote this. It's about, what are we going to do about MLK Boulevard? I think this is
Money's going in.
Oh, money.
Yes.
Money's going,
Money's going in.
not much to show for it. Gotcha, okay. Okay, what are you going to do about Martin Luther King Boulevard? Money's going in and not much to show for the money. Got it?
Got it.
Okay, we're gonna start right here. Let me know, y'all.
The question is a fair question. There's been this attempt, or what has been said over a lot of decades about the 7th Avenue corridor, 22nd Avenue corridor, 22nd Avenue corridor, 62nd Street, you name it. It's been said that there will be some economic development in these areas. But now we're dealing with a situation where it impedes the process. I've talked throughout the whole debate that in order for small businesses to come in an area, they have to feel safe. That's number one. They have to feel safe to come in and do and sell their product. Every time on Channel 7, Channel 6, and Channel 10, you see two young men in a storefront with guns to the head of a store owner. That hurts all of us. That hurts all of us. So we have to, as commissioner, I will work with the city manager and the police chief to address it. We need to set a tone in this town that this kind of foolishness will not happen. This is something that I'm very passionate about, that I talk all the time about. It is something that has to be done because it impedes the process of any development, whether it be Martin Luther King Boulevard, whichever. It impedes the process for development. It impedes the process for jobs. We have to get that taken care of because no one, or very few, and I sat on the enterprise zone board, and we provided tax credits to small businesses. We wanted them to hire 2 or 3 people, and we give those tax credits. But let me tell you something. It has to change in this community. It has to change. Because it is absolutely killing us with about 60 to 70% of the 40% of the individuals in this community are unemployed. And it's the same way over town with 70% unemployed. And why? Because it's not safe. It's not safe for store owners, and it's not safe for you. When the sports store owner was robbed 2 weeks ago, he said, I do not feel safe in my store or on my street. That spoke loudly to everyone in the city. And that needs to change. Thank you.
One of the things that we need to look at and we can learn from is the model or the paradigm that we have with Midtown. Midtown is a prime example of what we can do if we put our heads and hearts together.
Talk to you later.
We have to focus on, excuse me, okay, yes, that's okay, thank you. Yes, we have to put our hearts and minds together with Midtown to try to, like Midtown did as a prime example, how you can spur economic development. If you look at Midtown, that area is totally transformed. And what we can do is have mixed usage. That helps to produce jobs, that helps to, it's like a one-shop stop. You can have housing, you can have jobs, you can have opportunities to put together some things so that individuals in the community will be able to thrive just like other parts of this community is thriving. Of course, Dr. Malone is correct. We have to address the criminal element, and we have to have a zero tolerance with that. However, that must be done in a way where we have the right type of policing so that we don't have the repeat of what we had in 2010 and parts of 2011. And so it's imperative that we use the resources. One of the things that we have, and I said it last night, many of my colleagues may not know this, but our community development block grant is driven, thank you very much, is driven by the social economic level of the district. And with District 5, even with the addition of new residents being the poorest district in the city, we have the lion's share of the funding. And we just need to make sure that it's used wisely and prudently. Thank you.
You know, I think I started addressing it in the last question. There's no accident that our neighborhoods look like this. It's no accident that 62nd Street does not honor Dr. Martin Luther King. It's not an accident. It's based upon leadership. It's based upon who we elect, you and I elect, to be the next person that will fight for this community. Reverend Dunn spoke just a little bit about community development block grant dollars. We shouldn't be dependent upon grants. You know what? We are a rich, smart, wonderful group of people sitting on the best land in this community, and we should do more with it. Now, I agree that we've got to figure out some things as it relates to policing in this community, because we've got to feel safe. We've got to feel that we can walk down our streets. But that comes with leadership that understands that you can't police all neighborhoods in the same way. And that we've got to work with our police to teach them how to, and train them on how to work in our communities. Our communities deserve better. We can do better. But it takes leadership that understands what community-oriented policing is all about and how we bring that, but also how we build a good economic base in this community where not only one corner has economic development, but all of the corners have economic development.
I believe the question was about money coming into our community, but nothing being built on 62nd Street. So, I don't think it has anything to do with policing. We're talking about following the money, right? So, when you talk about following the money, my experience as having a master's in business administration, working with a Fortune 500 company, and managing budgets in excess of $3.4 million is about following the money. And when you talk about those types of experiences, and then you start to intermingle law until you can understand why the money in our community is not being spent the way it should be. Well, what we need to do is this. We need to have someone on the commission who understands budgets. We need to have someone like, for instance, they have Commissioner Sarnoff. Well, Commissioner Sarnoff, believe it or not, and I have taken the same amount of classes that it takes to become an accountant. So with that being said, you have to be able to follow that money from the point that it is granted to this community and that is not bottlenecked like the project that you saw here before us earlier today. Right? Because what happens is the money is being spent, but it's being spent amongst the friends and family who are administering that project, and it's not being effective in our communities. So we need a commissioner who will fight. I completely agree with that. But that's what I do every single day in the courtroom. See, I fight the battle that no one else in this room can fight. I fight the battle for the people who are in this room, who are voiceless, who are helpless, in the sense that they don't have the money to afford an attorney. And I stand up against that person every single day, the state of Florida, and I fight for this community. So I want to do the very same thing as the City of Miami Commissioner. You have to understand that we need someone who's going to fight. Not the one who resigns and walks away from responsibilities when going gets tough. We need someone who can follow a budget, not someone who can't provide a proper budget for this community. You know, we need that for our community to move forward in a positive and progressive manner. Thank you.
As your moderator, we have 30 more minutes. Well, I say we took 10 for devotional part, and we had they showed up about only one. Keon was here. I mean, Mr. Hartman was here, but the rest of them were late. So we got to go home on time. Yeah. Because I promise you that. And the next time, I want you all to say to me that she doesn't keep our promises. I do. Okay. But I'm going to read to you all the questions that were asked, and they are really great questions. I was going to give you 4 from the floor. We don't have time.
Good.
Okay, we don't have time. Y'all, anybody has anything that's really, okay, I know I do. I can give this one, okay, Burnside, if you don't answer that question quickly, I'm gonna sit you down. So come up here. Quickly.
Thank you. My question is very simple. How do you justify the fact that black young men are told you need education in order to get employment, yet Latinos or Latins who can't even read or write or speak English get hired? Why is there need for education to mop a floor, sweep with a broom, or pick up trash?
Okay, we're gonna start.
It's okay. You can't justify it. You can't do it. I mean, that's obvious that there's some discrimination that's been going on along in our communities. But that's why we need more representation from our community, because our community is very diverse. But the commission is not as diverse as we would like it to be. Even the county commission is not as diverse as we would like it to be. However, when I think about what you said, the education versus skills, I mean, that's the classic W.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington argument. So the question then becomes, well, what do we need from our communities? Well, I can guarantee you, we do need educated young people, right? Because that's what's going to move our community forward into the future when you're talking about bringing about the ideas that we need to make this community someplace that people want to travel to. However, we also need a strong workforce. And the thing that we've been having, when I look at, one of our candidates will say that, well, I want some temporary jobs for teenagers. No, what we need are sustainable jobs for teenagers. What we need are sustainable jobs for adults so they can provide food to their families and clothing on their back. So how do you do that? I mean, just off the top of my head, and I haven't been doing this for a very long time, but I can assure you that my ideas are sound. Miami River, that is something that you cannot buy. It is a resource that we have in this community that we have not even taken advantage of. So how do you do it? Well, you provide opportunities for businesses to establish themselves on Miami River so that we can ease the permitting processes where boats can dock and you can eat and you can have businesses there that fix boats and have people from the community if they have to catch the bus or drive, right there. We can train them to work on something that will bring jobs in the future. It will change the face of District 5. Because District 5 has those types of jewels, like the Overtowns and like the Miami River area. That's why people want our land. They see the vision for this community, where these candidates do not.
Let me say something, okay? I don't like murmurings, and I don't like people who make indoors. And they were made up here just a few minutes ago. I was going, like making different ones first. I inadvertently went to Keon instead of going to, and he says a negative thing. I won't repeat it, but let me say something to you. Yes, you did. I was not intentional to do anything wrong. So we're going to Reverend Dunn now, okay? It's not intention. No, it's not intention.
We don't follow the trend.
It's not intention.
No, you follow the trend.
Keep it in order.
You believe that. Follow the trend. I want to be exposed. Follow the
Okay, and Mr. Burnside, I think this was a carryover for last night. Is that correct? Okay, there was a statement that made last night regarding education. And I'm for education. I recognize, as I said last night, is that Mr. Beasley, who's over the workforce, suggested that in the age group between 18 and 45, they have high school diplomas. And also, I work with young people in the high schools. And I know there are 16, 17-year-olds who are reading on 3rd and 4th grade levels. That has to change. Now, with regard to discrimination, if there is some discrimination in this community, in this part of District 5, as it relates to jobs, believe me, Mr. Burnside, I will be the first one on your side to fight it. I know that the average income in the city of Miami is $18,000. That will not sustain any businesses, any community. The average income in Overtown is $11,000. We need jobs, and we need better paying jobs so that we can move the poor communities in District 5 ahead. So it's something that I will work with you and all others who are concerned with that. I will work with you to address